Howdy folks, Ray Benson here, and I'm with Jim Hightower, my good friend and former Texas Agricultural Commissioner and rambling populist agitator. Welcome, Jim. Thanks for coming.
Well, I'm glad to be here with the big wheel himself.
Yes, and we're having a great time. The Farm Aid Concert's underway, and we want to talk about the real issues, what we're here for, everything that we're here to do, and why do we need another Farm Aid, Jim?
Well, we need it because we've got to keep public attention on this problem. You know, back in the 80s, the TV cameras were there, some of the politicians were there, but you know, the cameras packed up and went away. The politicians petted some cows, petted themselves on the back, and then went off and raised their own salary. Meanwhile, out here in the countryside, there are struggling farmers with nothing but Willie Nelson and Ray Bensons and good folks like y'all who are willing to bring this back to the fore in this 1992 election. This is the time to get a hold of these guys by the short hairs.
That's right, and you know, we want to bring focus on what are the problems, what are the specific things that are broken down in the system of agricultural management in our country and everything. Well,
the real solution to a good farm economy are the people we have on the land right now, the very people we're trying to throw off. Woody Guthrie had that song, as through this world I travel, I see lots of funny men. Some will rob you with a six-gun and some with a fountain pen. It's the fountain pens that are killing us. They're writing agriculture policy that sets a price on a bushel of wheat that's lower than what it costs a farmer to produce it. So we've got to change agriculture policy so it works for farmers, for consumers, for taxpayers, and for the environment.
That's correct, and we sure appreciate all the great work that Jim Hightower has done over the years here in Texas as an agricultural commissioner, and now as he said, a rambling populist agitator. You'll be hearing Jim all through the show, and hopefully through the election year, telling his opinion and helping us figure out this mess in the agricultural situation. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, and all of this gang for standing with the farmers of America.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you making it so clear and helping people see this thing through.
Hello.
We're caught.
Hang on one second. Can we do that again?
Yeah.
I think you got it. I think we cut off the end.
Yes. Yeah. Trim that end. Trim your ends.
Okay. Wait a second. Camera?
Huh?
I've been playing this like this.
You can work this camera, that's fine.
Oh, okay. So that's just a two-shot? That one's on?
Hello.
You don't have to work either camera really, except to pick up the questions.
Stand by. 5, 4, 3.
Howdy folks, Ray Benson here with my good friend Jim Hightower, former Texas Agricultural Commissioner and rambling populist agitator. Welcome, Jim. Thank you for
Ray,
coming.
glad to be with you. The big wheel himself.
Yes. Well, here we are again. This is, I guess, about 4 Farm Aids we've been together. Why do we need another Farm Aid, Jim?
Well, because the problem hadn't gone away. You know, the cameras packed up after the 1980s farm crisis. The politicians petted a few cows, patted themselves on the back, and went back to Washington to raise their salary. But the problem remains, and we've got to put this issue back into the political process. 1992 is the year to do that.
What can we do to help move this thing along? What can we do as people in
Well,
America?
it's got to be a Washington solution. It's a Washington-created problem because we have a farm policy that farms farmers. Creates a price on a bushel of wheat that doesn't even allow them to recover the cost of production. Meanwhile, cost taxpayers money, consumer prices continue to go up, exports don't increase. It's not working for anybody but the big corporations in the middle.
Well, thank you, Jim. We're going to need your help these next few years.
Count on me.
All right.
Okay, we're going
A
to...
little less zippy, I thought. Our 1-minute version. We lost our stories.
By myself. I think that was good. You like that one?
Yeah.
Good. Very nice.
That was McDonald's.
McDonald's.
A minute or a minute and a half or long, whatever it is, minute range. Got the guy in West Texas?
Stand by.
I need this, right? Yeah. Okay.
We have speed. 5, 4, 3.
Some people say we're talking about old-fashioned issues here, that family farmers are a thing of the past. But the truth is, if you go out there in the countryside, you'll find that farmers are the great innovators. Let me tell you a story about a guy out in Muleshoe, Texas, Jim Crawford. About as regular a farmer as you're ever going to find. Farming chemically, like always, had 900 acres of food corn and cotton. he was going to lose his farm in the late 1980s because of the cost of those pesticides, interest rate, and et cetera. So he began to study it and began to look into another way of doing this, and remembered that Mama and them back over in East Texas didn't used to farm this way. They could do without those chemicals. So he looked into it and found out, sure enough, he could go organic. Now, in the first year of that production, sure enough, he got only half the yield that he had been getting. But you know what? He began to plow some of that manure that we got beaucoup of stacked up out there in West Texas back into his land, and he built the strength of that soil. So by the second year, he was getting 75% of the yield. By the third year, 100% of the yield, and by the fourth year, he was getting 150% of the yield on that corn that he had been getting. It's better news than that, though, because he was also using only a third of the water that he had been using, and he got 1.5 times the price on that corn that he could get with the conventional corn. Now, he is a committed organic farmer, making money, and he's committed not because it's an ideal, not because it's an ideology. He's committed because it makes sense, dollars and cents.